Good evening, class. Welcome to White House Studios Career Development and Education Series. I'm your host. My name is Arthur Whitehouse. Tonight's class is going to be focusing on career planning and development. So, our last class was on resume basics, uh, teaching you how to build a basic resume, what those components were, and how we were going to put that together, and how to structure just a basic resume. But tonight we're going to talk about how we are going to plan out our career once we have that resume. So, what is career planning and what does that mean? So, career planning is determining what kind of career you want to have and setting yourself in place to pursue that in kind of a methodical manner that is going to achieve an end goal with a structure and a strategy rather than kind of this kind of what I call an idling, kind of haphazard manner where you just kind of take things as they come. So like any type of achievement, like buying a house, like buying a car, like any project that you have, right? You have an end state that you want to achieve, and you have a set of steps to get there. Your career should kind of be the same way. You know in your mind kind of, or at least you have this vague idea that you want to get somewhere, right? But if you don't have it clearly defined what that somewhere is and what the steps are, you really can't be effective in getting there. So that your plan or that your ideal, right, your dream of getting to X, whatever X is, and we'll talk about that in a minute, can't be fully realized. So you kind of float around going, well, I want to kind of be this, but you haven't really established steps to get there, right? So you have to understand that success can mean any number of things. You have to understand that success can mean any number of things. Success takes sometimes just as much effort as the job itself takes. Not every single day, of course, but in those steps. And if you don't put effort into this part of the career, you're not going to progress effectively, right? So you could be working in the same position for 10 years and not making any steps to advance yourself. So you have to make an effective plan and you have to pursue it with dedication. So what's that going to allow you as a worker or as an employee to do? Well, one, it's going to increase your worth as an employee. And regardless of what the current mindset is about employee versus employer, you want to increase your worth as an employee because you become valuable to the company, and therefore that equals money, that equals promotions, that equals movement, that equals options for you. Once you become valuable, then you have value and you can create your own options. And we'll talk about that in a minute. So you can increase earnings at a more rapid pace, whether that's internally or you being able to move to a different company in a different position. You can increase the pace of promotions and title improvements, right? So even if it's not necessarily a promotion, it could be a lateral move, which is a sideways move, but could be a title improvement based on your plan and where you want to be. Or again, could be within the company, could be an external move. You can increase your ability to be picky about things because you have increased value. As your current company or as another company, as you've increased your value and your worth, you can be picky. So, for example, you want to move to a different job. Well, because you've increased your worth, you have the ability to be picky about what kind of jobs you're willing to take, or what kind of promotions you're willing to take, or what kind of lateral moves you're willing to take because you've increased that value. You're able to just flat out develop options, right? So where you may not have had options before, you now are able to develop options because you've got skills that you've developed. You've got you've opened up with training or certifications or various things. You've opened up options to yourself. One of the things based on these plans, you may have gotten yourself in a position to retire earlier if that's your goal. So you may be able to retire earlier, enjoy retirement, etc., or to actually have a retirement, not just live off of Social Security, as happens nowadays, and being able to plan strategically and actually have a retirement that's worthwhile, and be financially independent. So there's a lot of things that are there for you to want to plan and actually develop a strategic plan for that career, right? So, and part of that is understanding how you can maximize those things. So the first step you want to do is you want to develop your end goal. So what do you mean by that, right? So a lot of people are like, well, I just want to get as high as possible. That's not an end goal. Well, I want to make as much money as possible. That's not an end goal. Your end goal needs to be something specific, right? It needs to be something that you can objectively see and achieve. So, for example, I'm currently a cybersecurity manager. I may say that right now, my goal is to be a cybersecurity director for a well-known company. And I may say an example of that company might be Yum Brands, which is headquartered in my city. So I may say, I want to be an IT director for a company similar in size to Yum Brands. That is a goal that's specific, not too specific. I'm not saying specifically for Yum Brands. I'm saying similar to a company of that size, right? And I want to say, I want to achieve that in the next X amount of years. So I'm going to say, I want to try to achieve that in the next 7 years. So I want to set a time frame. I want it something that's going to make me commit to that, right? That's just an example. So there are some points that you got to look at when you're talking about developing your end goal. One of the first things we want to talk about is your end goal is not money. Your end goal is not money. Your end goal is not money. And I'm going to emphasize that. Money is the result or the consequence of your end goal. Never, ever, ever focus on the money. Why is that? The main reason you don't want to focus on money as your end goal is because once you get that money, then you lose the motivation for the job or the career that you're in. If money is always your motivation, once you achieve the money, you lose the motivation because you can end up in a crappy job that you don't like because you took the money. And then what are you left with? A crappy job, right? So you never make money your motivation, right? Never make money your goal. Just don't do that. Money is always going to be the result or the consequence of your goal. I'm not saying money is not important. Do not take that away from that comment. Absolutely, money is more important. We work for money, but money is not the goal. Your end goal shouldn't be doing whatever's trendy right now. Don't do what is trendy right now. So, for example, right now, there are, in my career, which is cybersecurity, there are a lot of schools right now that are saying, oh, get into cybersecurity. You can make 6 figures as soon as you graduate. Well, that's a lie. You can't do that. Years ago when I started, it was IT in general. Get into IT, you can be a system administrator making 80,000. Back then, 80,000 was good money. You can make 80,000, as soon as you graduate. That was also a lie. So don't do what's trendy just because you see a bunch of ads or you see a bunch of commercials. Don't make your goal based off what's trendy to do. Like right now, the trendy thing is AI, artificial intelligence. Whatever. Don't do stuff based off of what's trendy. Now, I'm not saying that those things don't have value, right? Uh, and I'm not saying that if you do your research, those can't be your goals. I'm just saying don't listen to the hype of a thing and think I'm just going to go do that because you hear everybody saying that. If you're going to do something like that, you have to focus and develop and do your research, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So focus on, when we talk about developing your end goal, think about your end goal in terms of what is going to be important to you in your life and how your end goal in your career is going to help you achieve that. Right? How your end goal in your career is going to help you achieve what's important in your life and how you're going to marry those two things together. That's a good way to think about that. So develop your end goal. Right? So how to develop that end goal? Right? How do I develop that end goal? Well, I told you to develop the end goal, but how do we develop that end goal? Here's our next step. So one of the things you have to determine is what's the industry in which you work. That's going to be a key factor. Developing an end goal in my industry is going to be different than developing an end goal in your industry. The path to get where I need to get is going to be different than the path to get where you need to get, right? So I'm in cybersecurity, and my particular branch of cybersecurity is more on the administrative end than the actual technical end. So my path is going to be a little bit different than, say, a plumber, right? A plumber's path might be within 10 years, they want to own their own company. Obviously, that's not my path. So your path may be different depending on what industry that you work in. So the second thing is, are you happy in that industry? And that is very important when we're talking about developing your end goal is, are you happy? Because when we talk about, and I go back to the money thing and not doing something because of the money, not doing what's trendy, right? And I made mention earlier about if you focus on the money and then when you get the money, what are you left with, right? This is one of the things that you have to think about. And I'm not saying working for again, I have to make sure I repeat this so you don't take away the wrong message. We all work for money, and I completely understand that, right? And you may be in a position right now where money is the most important thing. I get that. Planning is where you can plan yourself out of having to work for the money. Planning is where you plan to get yourself out of working for the money and out of working and into working for what's important. So I'm going to reiterate that again. You'll hear me reiterate this throughout the planning process, right? The plan is so you don't have to keep working based on the money, right? So again, it is the industry in which you work. Does that make you happy? Because again, think, we're talking about developing the end goal here, not the current state, the end state. One of the things we have to think about when we're talking about are we happy is your work-life balance, right? So in some careers, in some industries, you work a lot of hours to make your money. If you don't have a problem with that and you want to continue working on that and then work up, putting in the hours, putting in the time to get where you need to be, that's great. But just think about also as work-life balance as you move forward and you're planning. That's very important. Are you sacrificing that work-life balance, right, to get where you need to be? Some careers you have to do that. And if that career makes you happy, that's perfectly acceptable. I'm not dismissing that at all. I'm just saying, think about work-life balance as you're developing your plan. So obviously, and this is where I'm going to go back and talk about money, right? Because money is part of your strategy. what are the higher end positions that make the money, right, that you're going to be looking for? So for me, like I said, I'm looking at an IT director. Now it's not about a particular salary. So when I'm talking about making the money, I'm not talking about, oh, I need to make $70 an hour. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about where is your most income potential, right? So for a plumber, are you going to be, and I'm just picking on plumbers, and obviously if you're a plumber out there listening to this, I could be talking total crap, not knowing anything I'm talking about. I'm just picking on an industry to make an example. So if I'm a journeyman plumber, right, and we're talking about the higher end positions that make the money. So I could be looking at a master plumber for a larger company being a team lead, right, that makes money, or I could start my own uh, one man band or two-man band company that makes the money. Those are two of the next positions up that I could get in the next 7 years that make the money that I'm looking for in this 7-year plan that I've got. So, um, so obviously, again, I'm not saying a specific. This is $70 an hour. This is $35 an hour. This is 20, whatever. I'm just saying those are the positions that are going to make the money range that I'm looking for. Then I look at what's the income potential versus my work life balance or other criteria. It may be what's the income potential versus the responsibility. Maybe I'm somebody who doesn't like responsibility, uh, things of that nature. So look at the income potential versus the negatives that come with it and weigh those things out. What is your commitment to the job versus the income? So, for example, in those positions of responsibility, how committed are you to that responsibility or to those hours? Let's say it's an on-call job where you're on call, after hours as a manager or whatever. What is your commitment to that? Are you going to be one of those people who's like always trying to avoid the phone but still wanting to make the money? Because that creates an environment and a culture of you being resentful of the phone, but then also the people who are relying on you to be that person are resentful of you, and that creates a bad culture and a bad environment, right? So you got to weigh those things before you move into those positions, because you don't want to move into those positions just for the money, right? Again, it's not just about the money. You really got to move into the things that make you happier and are a good fit. That's how you want to plot this career path. You don't want to do things just to get the money. And then also, when we talk about commitment, we also want to talk about commitment to developing yourself versus that end goal, right? So, like plumbers are a good one. Nurses, me and cyber, uh, accounting, lots of careers out there. You have to have additional training. You have to have certifications. You have to have licensing. You have to have all these additional things for you to be able to continue in that career and to be able to move forward. So how committed are you to getting those things, right? Are you going to do just the minimum to get the job when it is required by the company? Or are you going to be proactive in attaining those things before it is required so you can get the position, right? Or are you going to hope that you get the position and then get the certification or training because it's required by the company, right? And be honest with yourself, right? Only do these things, only try to get these positions if you are willing to commit to getting that ahead of time. Go on and get the training, go on and get the certification, get that stuff ahead of time, right? Because then you're already positioned and you've already You've already proven to yourself, and you've already positioned yourself in the market. So even if your current company isn't willing to give you that bump up, you've already gotten your worth and your value ahead of time. This is where I mentioned earlier about developing options, because you've done the training, because you've done the certifications, because you've done the licensing, as much as you can do, obviously, because you've already done those things. You've already developed options. You've developed value. You can be picky, like I mentioned earlier. You can develop options either internally or externally. You can increase earnings at a more rapid pace, like we talked about, right? Because some companies, once you achieve certifications and trainings and licensing, they give you more money, right? Not all companies, but some companies do. And again, if not, other companies will want to poach you once you've achieved those things. And we'll talk about that in a minute, right? So, thinking about all the things that we just talked about, what is a realistic position in your industry for you to achieve, given the answers that you just gave to all those questions, right? And should you change industries given those answers, right? Are you willing to commit to your current industry? Are you happy there? Are you willing to do all the licensing and training and all that stuff to be able to move up? Are you willing to commit to hours, to responsibilities, to calls, to whatever? Are you willing to commit to the negatives and embrace those? Or are you just in it for the money, hoping that things will get better, and you kind of need to you kind of need to make a change, which isn't a bad thing, right? But it's part of the plan. That helps you develop your end goal. So if you decided, hey, look, this career is kind of junk, I need to pick something better, right? So once we do that, then we can develop milestones. But before we move on to that, here's kind of one of the things that I want to show you. I'm going to share my screen real quick so that we can talk about it. So I'm going to use myself as an example here, right? And I am sharing with you guys this. Hold on, I gotta. Okay. Share this with you. So I'm sharing an information security manager's job with you as an example, to show you that if I were to get into cybersecurity, what I would be looking at if I needed to set kind of a goal, and then how we're going to talk about the next section, developing milestones here. Okay, so if I were a new cybersecurity person, and I'm not expecting you to know the acronyms and all this kind of good stuff, okay, but we'll talk about it. So if I were to come in, and let's say I did all this, and I'm a new cybersecurity person, and I said, okay, I'm developing my end goal. I want to be an information security manager, which is my current job. Information security, cybersecurity, same stuff. So my end goal is I want to be this information security manager, and I picked this as an example, right? I want to be an information security manager at this level. So the next part of our thing is to develop milestones. Once an end goal is developed, how do you reach it? So the first thing you've got to do is develop a written list of deltas between where you are now and where you need to be. What you have and what you are now, and what you need to have and what you need to be, right? So just as an example, it says that I need to have a bachelor's degree in science, computer science, or a related field, preferred but not required. All right, I have a bachelor's degree, in business administration, right? So I don't have a bachelor's degree in computer science. I've got a bachelor's degree in business administration, but I also have an associate's degree in computer science. So I'm okay there. I kind of fit in there, which is good. All right, great. I've got these CISM, CISA, CISSP are equivalent experience related. Okay, those three are basically security certifications. Now, if I just graduated, I don't have those, and we're going to assume in this scenario that I don't have a CISM, which is Certified Information Security Manager, CISA, Certified Information Security Auditor, or CISSP, Certified Information System Security Practitioner. Those are like a kind of like a medium level. Well, the manager's not. The auditor's kind of a low to medium level, and the CISSP is kind of like a medium level security certification. So, and obviously, I don't have any equivalent experience in this scenario. It says experience leading and managing IT or security governance, policy, standards, controls, and industry regulations, frameworks, and best practices. And then it gives me an example of some of those. All right. Experience in designing, implementing, and managing privacy security solutions. In-depth knowledge of cybersecurity principles, best practices, and emerging threats to develop and implement effective security strategies. Experience in implementing and or managing large-scale identity and access management systems. Prefer experience using Atlassian Jira or equivalent to manage backlogs and document features. That's just Jira is just a project management system. It just basically you put in tickets for work, and it just helps you manage getting the work done for a project. Experience working with internal stakeholders and managing projects or equivalent experience. Project management experience. Proven ability to manage large-scale technical projects. All right. Okay. So the third bullet: experience leading and managing IT, security, governance, policy, standards, and controls, and industry regulations. Right. So that's just experience in managing cybersecurity to a particular regulatory standard. NIST is government. I don't know off the top of my head what SOC is. PCI is credit cards. ISO is the International Standards Organization. And ITIL is, I forget what it stands for, but it's basically on how you organize an IT industry, an IT organization, and best practices on how to integrate it. Basically, how to integrate IT in an organization. Experience in designing, implementing, and managing privacy solutions. So that's just basic. So a lot of this basically has to do with you need experience, right? I'll just break it down for that. Let's go back to the top. Okay, I already said I have a degree. So there's no delta there. I've got a degree. So CISM, CISA, CISSP, or. So I need one of those three or experience. Well, between the experience or a certification, the certification is going to be the easiest to get. So on my plan, which I'm going to write down, you want to write this down. And the reason you want to write this down, right, is simply because research has proven, neuropsychologists have proven that there's this thing called the generation effect. And not like age generation, but generating something. It basically says that individuals demonstrate better memory for material they've generated, written down, themselves than for material they've merely read. Right? So when you write something down, and typing works, just not as much as writing, but you can type it. Right? And it's, so you have what's called the generation effect. Twice, when you generate the goal mentally, first, second time when you write it down or type it down. So it helps imprint that in your brain. And then it's not just like, oh, I looked at it, I thought about it, I forgot it. So generation effect, it's a neurological effect. So write this down. So my first delta is going to be, I need a certification. I need a CISM, a CISA, or a CISSP. So I'm going to Google that, right? I'm going to Google that, find out where to get it, how to get it, how long it takes. And then that's my first delta. All right, second delta, experience leading and managing. Okay, so I'm going to figure out what these are, right? I'm going to figure out what all these are and figure out, I'm going to learn these. And that's my second delta. And then I'm going to get some training on those. All right, so I'm going to take some training classes. That's delta number 2. Right? This third one, managing privacy security solutions for M365. It's delta number 3. I'm going to take classes on that. In-depth knowledge of cybersecurity principles, best practices, and emerging threats. All right. That is something that's going to be experience. In-depth knowledge of principles, best practices, and emerging threats. So that's going to be a little bit of education, which I got from my degree, but it's also going to be some experience in there. So, they don't have in here like any sort of definite, I need X amount of years of experience, right? But if I've just graduated and let's see, yeah, they don't have any sort of thing in here about we want 10 years of experience, right? So I'm going to say, since I've just graduated and this is a manager's job, I'm going to give myself 7 years. I like 7 years. I don't like 10. I like 7. And that's just an arbitrary number that I've given myself. So I'm going to say 7 years of experience to be a manager. Now, granted, I've just gotten out, so I've got to like do my junior level, then my senior level, then a manager, right? 7 years is pretty quick, but I'm going to commit to it, right? Experience implementing or managing large-scale identity and access management systems, including Duo, Okta, Azure, etc. So I'm going to study those. That's delta number 4, right? And at this Jira thing, Atlassian Jira, so I'm going to study that. That's delta number 5. And then more experience, project management experience, right? So all that's experience. So I've got 5 deltas that I can actively commit to a timeline that are definable. I'm going to take those and once I've studied those, I'm going to put them on a realistic timeline, and I'm going to research on how long it takes to like get my certifications. If they like on any of these frameworks, if there's training classes, how long does it take to do these training classes? And then I'm going to look at my life. How much can I commit to these trainings? Right? Figure out how much of all of these deltas, these 5 deltas, how much, and I'm going to list it all out. How much training is involved in all of that, both in how many classes, how many hours, right? Because it's not going to be, oh, I just took one class and I know it. That's not how that works, right? Because you're committing yourself to learning this. This is a learning activity. This you are not just trying to read it and be like, okay, I know about it. You're trying to learn a skill set, right? So there's lots of things here that you're trying to do. And you're also trying to stay current. So it's not like you're learning it once and then you're done. You're also being current, right? You want to be not an expert at this, but you want to be knowledgeable. So you're going to schedule this out, right? So you've got this list of deltas. You've got the things necessary to kind of reach those deltas. So you prioritize your deltas based on your personal criteria, right? What's your personal criteria? Well, whatever that is. So it could be, how much money does it take for me to achieve those things? If that is the most critical to you, maybe money is the hardest thing for you to hit, or it could be time. Maybe you have more money but not enough time, or maybe it's effort, right? Maybe whatever that criteria is an effort thing. Maybe studying for you for those classes is super hard, right? Maybe it's not the time for the classes, but maybe the studying for you is super hard, or whatever your criteria is on how you're going to prioritize those deltas, right? So for me, and this is an example, all right, just an example. So for me, I might say those certifications for me are the hardest. I'm going to prioritize those because they're going to take the most commitment in time, money, and effort. Certifications are expensive. They take the most time because not only do you have to study for them, but they're also on a time limit because you have to schedule them. And if you pass up the test date, you have to pay for it again. And it takes a lot of effort in the studying and getting it done. So that would be my prioritize that delta. I'm going to get it done, right? But that may not be for you. You may say, oh man, well look, I really want to commit to studying those security governance policies because like at my job now, I really want to know those and be the expert now. That's my commitment. And that's fine. I'm not telling anybody which way they want to do it. But my point is prioritize those deltas. Set a priority. They're not all equal. Set a priority for those deltas in your list and then what it takes to achieve those. Then you're going to commit to a timeline of when you are going to achieve those. Each one of them. When you commit to that timeline, first off, make it realistic. I cannot stress that enough. Make it a realistic timeline. Realistic, realistic, realistic. Don't set an unrealistic goal for yourself because then you're never going to meet it and you're going to basically sabotage yourself. Set a realistic timeline. Don't overcommit your resources. Again, if you overcommit, you're going to sabotage yourself. And then when you fail to do it, you're going to give up. You're going to be like, oh, I failed. I'm not going to be able to do this. You can do this, but you have to be realistic. Also, don't undercommit. If you undercommit, then you're never going to get to it, and then you're just going to hand wave it away. Oh, well, I'll get to it. I've got plenty of time, and then you never get around to it, and then you've just pissed away your entire plan. Don't undercommit. But commit. Do commit. Whatever you've assigned to yourself, commit to the timeline. Set yourself daily and weekly reminders of stuff that you need to do. Hey, I'm going to study today. Boom, set a reminder. I'm going to study for 30 minutes. Set yourself, whatever is the best way for you to achieve that timeline, whether you need to block away a whole day or whether you need to block yourself out in 30-minute micro doses of effort, whatever works best for you, whatever fits into your schedule, whatever works for you to achieve what you need to achieve, doesn't matter. Achieve is what matters. Make strides towards that milestone, towards that goal. Commit to the timeline, hold yourself accountable, right? If you've got to set yourself a planner of micro achievements and then literally make a checkbox as you do each one, if that's what works best for you, then do it. If you need to have a third party, sister, brother, mom, dad, aunt, uncle, cousin, child, your adult children, your young children, a boss, a mentor, a coworker, doesn't matter. If you need somebody else to be like, hey, did you get that done? There's no shame in that, right? There is no shame because the thing of it is, the important thing is getting that goal, right? Nothing is more important. I mean, there are stuff more important, but the important thing is hitting that goal. You want to hit that goal because you have to remember these goals that you're setting for yourself are your life. You are setting your life up for success. Right? This isn't like, oh, I'm studying for an English test. No, this is you are strategically planning your life out here, right? And how you can succeed in your life. Because unfortunately, in America, succeeding at your job in a way makes you succeed at your life. All right. Commit to the timeline. Hold yourself accountable. All right, I can quit sharing this now. Oops. Stop sharing. All right. Now, one of the things that you need to be sure that you do is while we say commit to the plan, hold yourself accountable to the plan, take advantage of opportunities, though, that arise outside of your plan. So, for example, you've got your plan, you've got all this training, blah, 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 and you've got this. All of a sudden, a training class comes up that your boss offers you. Hey, we got this coming up. Do you want to do that? Well, that's not my plan. Well, who gives a shit? Your boss just offered you some training. Go freaking do it. Go do that training, right? That is something that is outside the plan, but benefits you and can accelerate your plan or accentuate your plan, and you be flexible and you do it. That helps you. You may have to change some of your milestones, and that's okay. Your plan is flexible. It's not a set of blinders, right? It's not a harness that holds you strapped to a cart that only goes in this direction. It's not set in stone. You can take advantage of opportunities. Now, don't let every single little opportunity sidetrack you, right? They have to fit within your end goal. So if your end goal is to move from working on a line at your local warehouse packing orders for Amazon, I'm just using that as an example. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm just using that as an example. But let's say your end goal is to graduate nursing school and become a nurse at your local large hospital, right? You don't want to get distracted by a free course that's 3 weeks long on how to bake cakes. You kind of don't. I mean, yeah, it's nice. It's probably cool, and it may even be a hobby, but is that something you really want to get distracted with right now? When your plan is to change careers and move yourself forward, you really have to weigh that out. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying that's something that you really have to weigh out. I personally would not take advantage of that, and I would commit myself to focusing on my schooling and other things. Okay, now adjust the plan when you need to, because life can throw you a lemon. If you've got your plan going and you end up with double pneumonia and a broken leg and you're in the hospital for 8 weeks, well, obviously your plan and your milestones just kind of went to crap, and I totally get that. So understand that your plan can be adjusted, but you don't want to just adjust it willy-nilly because of the 6-week cooking course either. You have to commit to the plan, stick with it, because if you don't stick with it and you keep adjusting it for every little thing, you're not ever going to make it to the end. But be flexible. Don't kill yourself. Don't make it so rigid that you give up. It's kind of like a diet, right? If you make the diet too rigid, you give up and you just gorge on the sweets. Don't want to do that. Now, again, I'm going to reiterate, you need to write this down either on paper or digitally. You need to be able to visualize the goal and the milestones, and you need to reference it periodically. You need to refresh yourself. You need to re-energize yourself on what you're trying to achieve. You want to go back and look at it. You want to see that end goal. You want to see those milestones. And if you need to be the person who checks off what you've accomplished so far so you can look at it and go, I did that, there's nothing wrong with that. That's fantastic. Do it. I do that. I sometimes need to look at it and see how far I've come to keep myself energized towards the goal that I'm trying to achieve, right? I was talking about research earlier. One of the things research has proven is that people who have a written goal or a written set of milestones, have a written plan, they are 1.5 times more likely to achieve what they're going after than people who don't, just by writing it down. Just think about that. So the next thing we want to do is after we've written all this down, we're working on our plan. We want to analyze our progress. So this is why we want to write it down. We want to see where we're at. We want to gauge our progress against our plan. So here's our plan. Here's our milestones. We said we were going to do this. So it's, and I'm going to just use an example. Right now it's November 2023. I said I was going to be here. Where am I actually? What have I actually achieved? Right? Okay. Am I right on target? Yep, right on target. Thumbs up, you. Good job. Keep motivating. I'm 3 months behind. Well, I need to step up. Can I step up? Yes. I just haven't put in enough effort because I've been distracted, blah, blah, blah. Okay. That's a re-energize. I need to step up. I need to move it. Or, well, yeah, I got sick, the wife got sick, kids got sick, or there was a death in the family, something like that, or, whatever. If there was a legitimate reason, we can make a minor adjustment to the plan, push out a couple of dates. Understood. Got fired, company closed down. Okay, that's a major adjustment. Well, okay, we're going to have to push that back 6 months, right? Be realistic with your plan, right? But be honest. I just didn't get as far along as I needed to. Kick yourself in the butt, pick it up, move on. Hey, I'm on target. Pat yourself on the back. We all need a pat on the back every now and then. Celebrate the success, right? Celebrate the success however you need to celebrate. And I mean that. Celebrate the success. Celebrating successes is super important. Just don't let them fly by, right? When you do your periodic checks. So, and however you set that up, you can set that up like, hey, I want to quarterly analyze my progress. So once every 3 months, I want to analyze my progress. And you can make it a big deal. So I'm going to go through, I want to check. Yep. Here's where I'm at. Awesome. Treat yourself to dinner, whatever your treat is. If that's what does it for you. However you need to do that. So you need to review progress against milestone and deltas, not just your milestones, but also your deltas, because your deltas may have changed, right? Because of little asides, right? Also your experience. So one of the things is like your experience as a delta is hard to take you to a milestone, right? And you may have configured that as a milestone, which is great. It's not just about like the certifications or the training or whatever. Your experience can also be a milestone, right? In 1 year, I want to be able to have managed 2 projects. But if you haven't, or if it's like, I need 3 years of managing projects, not just how many projects I manage, but I need 3 years. Okay, well, that's a delta, right? Oh, hey, I've got 3 years of managing projects now, or whatever. So just not just milestones, but check your deltas. Again, make realistic adjustments if the deltas are too great. Kick yourself in the butt if you need to. Take on a little bit more effort. Also, and here's a big one. If you find that you're struggling, right? If you find that you're struggling, ask advice from those who you feel are in a position to help you when and where necessary, right? So it could be a boss. It could be an HR person. It could be a mentor. It could be the guy down the road that owns his own company, right? Who might be able to provide you with a little bit of experience. It could be a local college professor who could let you come in and audit a class. It could be somebody who could provide an internship if you're a young person who needs a little bit of extra experience. It could be anywhere, right? You have to remember, and again, this is something else I can't emphasize enough. If you really, truly want to get yourself in a position to achieve your end goal, you have to take advantage of the tools that are out there to do it. And you can't say, well, I'm not going to do that. That's not going to get you anywhere. That's just not going to get you anywhere. You have to be willing. The great people who achieve things never said, "Oh, I'm not going to do that." They don't do that. Like, okay, what do I got to do to get here? Okay, this is what I got to do. Okay, I'm going to go do that. Oh, and I can do this. Okay, well, I'm going to do that. They never said, well, I'm not going to do that. That's not a thing. They don't do that. But ask advice. There's a lot of people around you who you may not think can give you advice. And you'd be surprised where you can get some good ideas on how to be like, oh, yeah, wow, did you do this? Oh, wow, I didn't think of that. Again, change, update the plan. And then the last bit is if you have a major, if you have a major life event, or if you got to your goal, right? You got to your goal. If you have a major life event or you got to your goal, if the major life event totally bollockses up your plan, let's say the company that you're working for got closed, and you're out of work. Period out of work. And you can't find another job, or you had a debilitating illness, out for 6 months, or something, right? I'm talking a major life event. Go back to step one. Go back to step one. Develop a new goal and start all over, because the plan is shot. You can't try to make the plan fit your new situation. And that's okay. Go back to step one and say, okay, I realize I'm in a totally new situation. What is my new goal? What is absolutely my new goal? What are my deltas? What are my milestones? Let's hit it. Don't beat yourself up about your old goal, your old plan. Old plan doesn't matter, right? Because this is life. This is a living thing to help you achieve where you need to be. If you met your goal, congratulations. Good job. You got to a point. Now you need to set your next goal. Unless this goal was retirement, right? In which case, set your next goal. Your next goal is to what? Travel the world. All right, how are you going to get there? You've always got plans. You've always got goals. You've always got deltas. You always got milestones. Is it to spend time with the grandkids? Who knows? Is it to, are you 35 and managed to retire and you're sitting on your butt with tons of money because you absolutely killed it? Props. What's your next goal? But career planning, right? I'm going to reiterate. We talked about what's this going to do for you, right? What's this going to do for you? Going to increase your earnings at a more rapid pace. It's going to increase the pace of your promotions and or title improvements, right? Increase your ability to be picky because you have increased value. It's going to allow you to develop options throughout your career that you wouldn't otherwise have. So instead of being at the mercy of employers and companies, right? Instead of being at the mercy of things that pick you, you're going to be able to pick. Potentially, you could retire earlier if you so choose. And I actually have a retirement because you're going to have planned out the things that come to you. You're going to go get them. They're not going to come to you. You're going to go get the things instead of waiting for them to potentially drop in your lap. You're going to aggressively pursue those things, and they're going to come to you much quicker, right? You're going to see your earnings increase faster, right? And those things are going to make you much more valuable, and you're not going to be at the mercy of employers. You're not going to be at the mercy of markets, volatile job markets. You're not going to be the person who's going to be worrying when companies close or again, markets are volatile or whatever. The stock market crashes and companies are closed. You're not going to be the one who's going to be as worried about that. When you're doing this kind of planning and development, you're the person who's going to be like, okay, I know what I need to do. I'm going to do this, 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 and this. And you're going to be the person with options because you're going to be a person who is much more valuable because you've made yourself much more valuable. But career planning, career development, being strategic and methodical about how you want to develop yourself is really going to make you uh, a valuable employee and put you in charge rather than making you a victim of circumstances that you have to basically suffer through. So that's the end of the class. The next class that we're going to have is going to be advanced resumes. That'll be next week. And then the class after that is going to be job searching and job applications. So I will look forward to seeing you all then. And again, this is Whitehall Studios presenting the Career Education and Development Series. And thank you all for attending. Have a good night.